Hello, my name is Mike. This is a bike. This is Excelsior Henderson number 302. It's coming to my garage because, well, it belongs to a friend of mine, and told him I'd get it running for him. And if you saw the little short that I made, we indeed get it to actually start and run. I sprayed a little starting fluid to the intake so I could verify it had spark, and it popped a little bit, telling me it had a fuel problem. And in the short, you saw me put the wrong fuel pump in it, but it actually worked just fine. So it was running. I was going to take it for a spin before I gave it back to my friend, and got on the bike, and the battery light was on, indicating that it was not putting out enough voltage. I checked the voltage with my multimeter, and indeed, it was barely putting out 12 volts. On these bikes, it's fairly common for the stators to fail. They didn't really get very good cooling. So I unplugged the wire for the stator. I was going to verify the output of the stator, and I went to start the bike, and it went click. Didn't crank. Now, I'd been charging the battery, so the battery was fully charged. Put a test light on the starter, no voltage getting to the starter. I removed the seat and checked the starting relay. There was power on one side of the relay clicked, but no power coming out. Now, you can get to the terminals through the top with the seat out, but you can't remove the relay unless you remove the side cover. So what I'm trying to say is it snowballed. Started off as a fuel pump, now it could be a stator as well as a starter relay. And who knows, it may even need a starter as well. Anyway, that's how these things go. The bike sat in storage for a long time. One of the worst things you can do for any vehicle is just lock it away and let it sit. You got to take them out and love them once in a while. Otherwise, things, degrade over time. In this particular case, this is one of the early production bikes, number 302. And the early production bikes, many of them had a little name assigned to them, written in white ink on the frame. This one is Boss, as in Boss 302. You Ford guys will get that one. So this is Boss 302. It belonged to a guy named Nick Trumbo. Nick Trumbo was the Southern California sales rep for Excelsior Henderson when they were in business. Well, Nick has passed it down to his son Scott. So now it's Scott's bike. And I think it's really important to keep this bike on the road because it's a second generation bike owner. This is fantastic. This bike is now, as we older guys are getting older, it's great to see some of the young guys stepping up and enjoying the bikes the way that we did. And still do in my case. For the time being anyway. So I've digressed way off topic. In the rest of this episode, we're going to get this bike on the road. So stick around.
Somewhere in a dusty, dirty back alley in western Arizona, not far from historic Route 66, is an old fart trying to cram a square peg into a round hole. He'll work on anything, just as long as it's got at least 2 cool wheels.
To get this cover off, I've got to take the pulley cover off. To take the pulley cover off, I've got to remove the entire rear exhaust pipe. And, of course, that last fastener there, well, the hex head, or I should say the Allen head, has, of course, rounded out. Time for this gadget. Nope. Can't get in there. Nope. I'm just going to drill it out. This is ridiculous. we go. This is what we're after in the first place, this starter relay. You can hear it click. If I put a test light on it, it's getting power to it, but on the output side that goes to the starter, nothing. So the contacts inside are apparently bad. Let me see what kind of connector it's got. But I think I've got one from a Victory I can make work. Yeah, from a Victory. Me, Mr. Install the wrong part guy. Let me see what I've got. Another thing I'm going to do while I'm in here, this is a notorious problem on these Excelsior Hendersons, is this bolt right here. This is a ground cable. This is your main ground. And you'll notice it's pretty crusty. All that corrosion gets in there, and one day you might go to start your bike, and the entire wire harness ignites. That actually happened to me because of this poor ground. If you're an Excelsior Henderson owner, you definitely want to check this ground, clean it up real good, and reinstall it. Or do what I did on my other bikes. I haven't done it to this one yet, but on the black bike over there, and on the Green and Oyster bike, I ran redundant grounds. I've got a ground from the battery to the frame, and then another ground from the frame to the engine. I don't rely on this one alone. It's just, if you've had to rewire one of these, and the wire harness goes everywhere, it's a nightmare. It's not much fun. So I highly recommend not only cleaning this ground, but installing a redundant grounding system. Well, the Victory starter relay on the left would probably work, but the mounting brackets are very different. And of course, I'd have to change the connectors. Let me see what I can find online first, and if I can't come up with something a little closer, maybe from a Jap bike or something, I'll make this one work. So, about 13 years ago, when I first got into Excelsior Hendersons, there was a dealership in Texas that still had a bunch of inventory of parts. So I gave them an offer on all the parts, bought all these parts, used one or two on the bikes that I had at the time, and the rest I'd just been, rat holding away. I've moved a couple times and all these boxes moved with me. Well, turns out this particular one is a starter relay kit. Where'd it go? Look here. It comes with battery cables and a mounting bracket and a genuine Excelsior Henderson starter relay. Hey, we're back in business. The kit comes complete with the starter relay, battery cable, starter cable, mounting bracket, hot feed to the main circuit breaker, and all the confetti you can eat. Now to get that cut off screw head out, it had to be drilled, but it is moving. It was. Work with me here. Oh yeah, it's actually pretty loose. Yay! That's one thing that's always a pain in the neck, is when these button head screws, I've seen this happen more than once. The heads, for whatever reason, are softer than the rest of the entire fastener. So the threads are strong and they hold the components together, but you put a socket in it and it just rounds out. Seen it a lot. Alrighty, I gotta take that ground apart and clean it up real good. He's a troublemaker, so we'll go ahead and do that while we're in here. Yeah, look at the corrosion on those terminals. It's getting crusty. Even though it's a star type fastener, so it bites into the metal, you're begging for trouble there. And the other part of the problem is the bolt itself. Well, it's got Loctite on it. And Loctite is not a very good conductor. So we'll get all this cleaned up, make sure it has good contact. Alright, I haven't put anything else back together in case I need to go back in there, but the relay is in place, should crank. Uh-oh. Oh, that's not good. Oh man. If the relay is chattering, which indicates that even though it's reaching the starter now, starter is shorted or something. Oh man, this thing just keeps on snowballing. Oh my God. Now I gotta pull the starter off. It never ends. Excelsior Hendersons have rubber engine mounts. They call them isolators. When they get old and sag, the whole engine sits down in the frame. And when it sits down in the frame, things happen. Like, that's your crank sensor right there. And you can see it's contacting the frame right there. That's going to lead to a failed crank sensor. The other thing is, well, here's my battery cable going to the starter, and it is absolutely crushed between the engine and the frame. I can see the cable back there, but I cannot get it to slide. So I'm going to unbolt the isolator, lift the engine up, and pull this cable out. And I think we're going to find that it is shorted to ground. And that's what destroyed our starter relay. All right, I've got the engine up off the frame, pulled the starter cable through, and right there, you can see it is pinched, crushed, and the insulation is ruptured, and so it is shorted to the frame. There's our problem. So isolators cause the engine to sag, cause this to get damaged, cause the starter relay to be damaged. So it's a cascade effect. One failed component caused two others to fail. So I can fix this and reroute it in such a way that it doesn't necessarily have to get between the engine and the frame. There's not a lot of room there to begin with. And when those isolators, you can see that small gap. When those isolators collapse, that cable is going to get crushed again. So we'll reroute it. We'll make it more better. And we have another broken part. This standoff here is what that side cover is supposed to bolt to. Well, it's broken. It's metal. It was a bad weld to begin with, and then somebody's tried to epoxy it in the past, and the epoxy is not doing its thing. So what I think I'll do is I'll make it a little easier. I'll just drill a hole there, put a long screw in it, and just put a sleeve where this would have gone, and it'll space it just right the same way, and it'll be a much easier solution than trying to weld or glue or whatever. Okay. Now I have a screw through that hole. I've got a spacer, and then I got a nice little chrome nut that I can put on the back side of it once the cover's back in place. Alrighty, got the covers back on, and you'll notice I did not use the button head screws that came out. I'm not going to fight them things. The next guy that has to work on this bike won't have to fight them either. These regular Allen screws are much better. They don't strip out like the other ones. So that one and the one that's behind here, okay, those have been replaced, and then I used a screw and a nice little chrome acorn nut. So that's done. Now all I gotta do is put the exhaust back on, and we can start it up and find out if the charging system needs repair. We can start it, and I can finally do what I set out to do in the first place, and that was to see if the stator was doing its job or not, because they are known to fail on these bikes. Alright. This is always so much fun, this clamp. What a crazy design. Crazy. goodness. Didn't do it right. Let's try it again. Did it wrong. An idiot. Oh, you do it the right way, it slips right in. Alright. There we go. These houses in. Nice! Alright, bolts. Alright, let's see if the stator's putting anything out. Let's fire the old girl up. So the good news is it's not the stator. You don't have to take the primary cover off or anything like that. So it's probably a bad voltage regulator. However, I did notice when I unplugged the connector, one of the terminals looked like it had backed out about halfway. That may be all that's wrong with it. I'm going to go ahead and make sure it's fully plugged in. We'll check it one more time. If it's still not charging, we know we need a voltage regulator. DC volts this time. That went out. Alright, the charge light went out, so it saw some voltage increase, and it was all over the place. One minute it was sitting at like 12 volts. I revved on it, it got up to almost 13 volts, then suddenly dropped off again. I'm going to call that a bad voltage regulator, and no, I don't have one on the shelf. And I can probably do like I did on 741, I can just take the wrong part and make it work. Because they're, essentially the same. If you've got a three-phase system that's going into a rectifier / regulator, it takes three-phase AC and it turns it into a controlled voltage output based on how much charge is in the battery. And they work essentially the same way on most bikes. There's different types in as far as how they function, how they do that. The latest thing is, what do they call it? A MOSFET, something like that. And a lot of guys use them because they don't shunt the voltage back into the system. They just dissipate it, or I don't know. They kind of lose me when they start getting into the technical electron flow part of it all. But nonetheless, we'll go ahead and we'll put a voltage regulator on it. I'm going to give Scott a call, let him know he needs isolators, first and foremost. Let him know we're running again, and let him know we're going to need to hunt down some kind of a voltage regulator. So that's going to do it for this episode. I know it's a little shorter than usual. I just kind of wanted to let everybody know what was going on with this bike because it's kind of popped up in a few videos in the past, and I haven't really said much about it. And just wanted to fill you in on what I'm actually doing with the bike, why it's here, and why this is an important bike. Anyway, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and you might see it one more time when I get those last couple of parts put on. We'll take you for a spin. Thanks for watching.